First, what I'd like to do is I'd like to read from my website, Step Up to the Mic, from it just can't possibly be 10 years ago, but I wrote this back on September 28th, 2015. The
Wow.
sad news was not unexpected, but Lawrence Peter Yogi Berra passed away on Wednesday, September 23rd, 2015, at the age of 90. He lived a life that one could only dream of. A hero on the baseball field, winning 10 World Series rings for the New York Yankees, more than anyone else to ever play the game. But more importantly, he was a hero on the battlefield as part of D-Day invasion, June 6, 1944, and a member of the U.S. Navy. He earned a Purple Heart before ever playing one game on the major league level. No, not only was Yogi beloved by Yankee fans everywhere, he was admired and respected and quoted all around the world. The Empire State Building was lit in blue and white pinstripes in his honor. Mayor de Blasio ordered all flags in New York City to be lowered to half mast for a day of tribute. Berra's sayings and comments were known as Yogiisms. They were humorous, sometimes contradictory, but always had a message and a wisdom to them. His most famous yogiism: it ain't over till it's over. And for Yogi, it will never be over because he will always be quoted, always remembered, and always beloved, not only as a Hall of Fame baseball player, but a war hero and a national treasure. With that in mind, we are honored to welcome in his son, Lawrence Berra Jr. Larry, thanks for joining us tonight.
My pleasure. Thanks for having me.
Larry, does it seem like 10 years ago? It can't possibly be, but
No,
my goodness.
it goes so quickly. I mean, and I guess maybe because of my age too. I'm up there, so the time goes pretty quick. But and my brothers and I, we still live in the area where my father lived and my mother lived, and so I drive through the town every day. So when I drive through the town, you remember them all the time. And so trying to, there's no space or anything between it. It's a constant memory.
Billy, again, it's 10 years ago. You have something very much in common with Larry. Your dad was beloved and will always be beloved by myself and all diehard Yankee fans. Your thoughts, on the 10 years later, reflecting on Yogi.
After my father passed away, I thought my dream of being an agent died with dad because I thought I'd lose all my contacts. Yogi went out of his way to find my clients that were Yankees and build them up and tell them he thought they were great and do things like that for me. And it just, I can't tell you how much it means to me today, even thinking about it. I mean, I don't even know if I've ever told you about that, Larry, but he did. He went and would find my guys and
Right.
build them up and blow them up in front of their teammates.
Uh, he was a special man. It's not just because he was my father, but he was something else.
Larry, your daughter is something else. She's a spitfire. She's on social
Uh,
media.
right.
she's repelling down the sides of buildings and she's doing all kinds of things. Who does she take after with that personality?
I don't know. She's got a little bit of spitfire from her mother, but she's my oldest one, and you don't want to tangle with her. She's something I'm afraid of her sometimes. She's like my like a guardian for me now. I mean, she's a medical person. She knows all this medicine stuff. She knows food. She's a CrossFit, and she climbs mountains. She goes on 80-mile hikes. She does all this crazy stuff, but her knowledge of sports and the way she presents herself is just terrific. And when she did the documentary for Dad, it was just incredible. I was so proud of her.
Billy, you had thoughts on that documentary. It really touched you. Can you elaborate a little bit?
Think about how long I've known this man. And he and my father, roomed together as players before. They were on the same staff. They were very close. And baseball's my life. And I always had Yogi in my top 5 catchers. But really, it was the documentary that made me wise up and realize he was the greatest catcher to ever put on the gear in baseball history. I'm not sure it's even close. And I think she was right. I think the Yogiisms, I don't want to say deleted that or diluted it a little bit. Just it brought your attention somewhere else, away from just how great he was as a player. And the 10 rings should have been enough. But when you add it all up, it's a no-brainer. He was the greatest catcher in baseball history. And I know what kind of teammate he was and what kind of human being he was. So you put all that together, and wow.
Well said, Billy. And Larry, we mentioned your daughter, Lindsay, and how hard she works and the thought that she puts into everything. And what she organized something that we'd like for you to just mention just very briefly, because it's called Want to Have a Catch, and it's join us Sunday, September 21st. So that's this Sunday coming up at Yogi Berra Stadium to break a Guinness World's Record title for the largest game of catch. Larry, could you tell us how that came to be?
Well, they were trying to figure out, they didn't want to have a dinner for Dad's 100th birthday or his 10th anniversary of his death. So they wanted to do something totally different. And somehow they came up with this, the people at the museum came up with this thing. Why don't we have break the Guinness record of people playing catch? And when I first heard it, I said, how are you going to do that? That's, what are you going to do? And it ended up, they worked at it, and I just found out today that it's now sold out. There's almost 3,000 people coming. They only needed 2,000. They only needed 2,000 to break the record, and we're way over that. So we're all excited and hoping that that fruition. Now we just got to hope that Dad has the sun out the whole time, because we're outside at Yogi Berra Stadium in Montclair. So we hope we don't have any lightning or anything.
I don't think so, Larry. Someone once joked that when your dad had a golf event, they called it Yogi weather. Like it was guaranteed that weather would be on your side too. So this is just another success by Lindsay and yourself and the Berra, everyone in the Berra organization there to pay tribute to your dad. And it sounds like you wanted to do something that wasn't just ordinary. It wasn't just a dinner. It wasn't just something where he wanted to get people involved and to have fun and to smile. Yeah. It makes perfect sense. I think it was a stroke of genius for you guys to organize something like that. So
and like I said, when we first heard it, like the Eve Shannon, the director of the museum, and the other people in the museum, when they worked so hard on it, and they've got amazing. We have Tops as a sponsor, Rawlings as a sponsor. It's come out. It's worked out really well. So I can't wait to go myself. I don't even have anything to do. I'm a participant. I'm going to be throwing a ball for 10 minutes or 5 minutes for 10 feet. You only have to throw it 10 feet.
All right.
And it's my kind of. I'm kind of like my father. I love talking to people. So with all these people, it's kind of like my event too, because I'll be yapping away with everybody.
That's beautiful. And we're going to throw something out there, because this was sent out through social media by the Yogi Berra Museum on September 9th. And it says, huge congratulations to Aaron Judge on the 359th home run. Yogi would have been thrilled that Aaron Judge was the one who passed him. And Lindsay echoed that comment, and she said, congrats to Aaron Judge. He's in great Yankee company. Larry, your thoughts?
I would second that. And and just in using Dad's thoughts, he would be as just as happy as Aaron Judge. He always said that he played the game, and if I know him, he would say, Aaron's on top of me now. I had three or four guys on top of me already. What is another one? It doesn't matter. So he was just so happy to play the game. He never understood records and all that kind of thing. But he used to love to tease, like with the 10 rings, and tease Derek Jeter. And he would go up and go, "Hey, you got your fifth ring, huh?" He goes, "Think's not going to do you any good. I got 10."
He would hold his hands up, man. That was great. And Billy, I think that something that Yogi said years ago when another record was it summed it up perfectly, and it's in quotes. I knew the record would stand until it was broken. As a Yogiism, Billy, your thoughts, right?
that was
Well,
bad. I'm sorry.
I didn't hear about the great documentary until after it was already produced, and I'd lost Larry's number. I was able to find Lindsay's daughter on LinkedIn and reached out to her because I knew of a Yogiism that didn't get publicized, and it was even mentioned in that movie or in the documentary when the moment where my father pulls Reggie Jackson off the field in Fenway in the middle of the inning, and they try to go at it and fight, and it was Yogi's voice that finally stopped my father. His old friend's voice, the voice he trusted. And Yogi used a Yogiism to stop it. He said, "Billy, nobody wins this fight, Billy." And that made my father stop and quit going after Reggie in the dugout. And he let it die. And as most Yogiisms are, it was wise, poignant, and a little bit funny.
Larry, you were at the White House, and I just want to read another column that I wrote, and I had a little something to share with people back then. But I just want to read this from another column I wrote. Yogi Berra was posthumously awarded the Presidential Medal of Freedom by President Barack Obama on November 16th, 2015. New York Yankees owner Hal Steinbrenner said it best when he spoke about the tribute. Quote, "On behalf of the Yankees organization, we congratulate the family of Yogi Berra for his inclusion among upcoming recipients of the Presidential Medal of Freedom. This honor is a fitting tribute to a man who not only represented the sport of baseball with unequaled dignity and humor, but exemplified the best virtues of our country through his military service and compassion for others. His life was truly the embodiment of the American dream." Close quotes. Larry, how did you feel that day when you received that award for your dad?
People always bring, when you name presidents or anything, people always bring in, "Are you going to go down there and get that?" So I said, "Of course I'm going to go down there. It's it's the president of the United States, and all the way down." But I'll tell you, when you walk into the White House, and I had never been in the White House before. I walked in the White House and I said, "Oh my," it really hit me. I even said to Lindsay, because Lindsay and I went down earlier before my brothers came down, and we were in the, and I was just said, I go, "Lindsay, do you realize we're in the White House? We're going to meet the president of the United States." And I tell people, I don't care who the president is. I'm meeting the president of the United States. One of the greatest thrills of my life.
Wow. Absolutely.
Just to have him present the medal to me from my dad and looking at my two brothers and everything. It was incredible.
Larry, I'm gonna tell you just a quick little story, and I'm so proud of this, that I have just a little connection with the Berra family. And what happened 10 years ago was there was a petition, an online petition, that Yogi needed 100,000 signatures, but electronically. to go to the White House so that the petition
Yep.
for President Obama to consider the Presidential Medal of Freedom Award. Now, he had 31 days to accomplish this. And
Right.
after 30 days, there was only 70,000 votes. And he
Right.
needed 30,000 votes in the last day. And I'm watching this, and at the time I was much more vocal on Twitter than I am now. I had a good following. I still do, but I took a different direction because for different reasons I have a contact within the Yankees. I'm a little bit more private. But at that time, what I did was I started tweeting out saying we gotta get this going for Yogi because he's running out of time. And so I did just what I said in that first column. He played in the American League, but he was a national treasure. He fought in D-Day invasion, and it was getting steam, but again running out of time. And someone did me a favor because it was a sports writer by the name of Brendan Cuddy. And he's still a beat writer for the New York Yankees.
Okay.
And he wrote, doesn't look, and I'm quoting here, I'm reading from his tweet, doesn't look like Yogi will get enough signatures for his Presidential Medal of Freedom petition. And when I saw that, Larry, steam was coming out of my ears because your dad deserved that award 4 decades ago.
Right.
Every president prior to Obama should be ashamed of themselves for overlooking Yogi Berra for all those years. So I'm angry just as a diehard Yankee fan and as a fan of your dad. So when Brendan sent out that tweet, it gave me an idea. And I put it in the context of a baseball game. Yogi's down by 23K, 9th inning. I said, he needs Yankee fans' help. And then I put all in capital letters. It ain't over till it's over.
Right.
With exclamation points. And you know who saw it? The New York Yankees. And they retweeted it. And it got 100,000 views, and people started, signing the petition, and it went through. So there's it's a Yogiism right to the end. And Larry, no one deserved that better, and more so. And you know what? The shame of it was that it was posthumous because it probably would have meant the world to your dad.
And what's funny is he knew personally all 4 of the presidents before that. He played golf with George Bush, Gerald Ford, Ronald Reagan. He knew them all, and it was funny. But Lindsay also, at the 9th hour or 10th hour, whatever they call it, she got on and using her MLB and ESPN contacts, and she went on and started putting tweeting and sending to all the Yankee fans that had a name like Jay-Z, Beyonce, Billy Crystal, all the famous people that were Yankee fans, and she hit everybody. And at the same time, they started building up, and we were hoping that they were part of the reason why that he made the 100,000, that he got to the 100,000. But she worked her ass off for that, to get that for Dad.
So richly deserved, and you were there and you received it, and you said it so eloquently and correctly. To be in the White House and shake the president's hand, I don't care what your political views are, that is the ultimate honor. And Larry, once again, he deserved it so much. Larry, let's just ask you, because it does kind of fit in with everything that's going on now with the current Yankees and the current state of baseball. Cal Raleigh, what do you think of him? I mean, here's a cat. Now, my all-time favorite growing up was Mickey Mantle. I wasn't old enough to remember your dad, so I remember Mickey's. I was born in '58, so '67. I saw Mickey hit home run number 500 on Mother's Day, and he's limping around the bases, and I'm like, that's my guy. But now, how does Cal Raleigh? I mean, you got to give him credit for a catcher to hit 54 home runs. What would your dad have thought about the big dumper?
And the same thing. I mean, It's just the way baseball is played, and I don't take anything away from all the other players. But my father always, I go, Dad, he liked to drive in runs, whether it was a ground ball out that would got a runner or a fly ball or whatever. Home runs, he goes, I could have hit more home runs, but my average would have gone down, and I would have struck out more. But
Wow, strike out more. Ladies and gentlemen, anybody out there, we'll throw this out. Larry's laughing because he knows where I'm going with this. There was one of his MVP years, and I'm not even. I could look it up. I will, but I know I'm right about this. He struck out 20 times for the entire year. He won MVP. There are players today that strike out 20 times in a homestand.
He actually, the one year, the best year, he batted 697 times and struck out 12 times.
I think that was his favorite year, right, Larry? Probably. Billy, your thoughts on that? With these analytics guys drive me crazy. That strikeouts don't matter. Well, just look at the World Series last year with the New York Yankees. The season fell apart in inning 5, right? Because the Dodgers put the bat on the ball. They aggressively ran the bases, and the rest was history, as they say. Billy, your thoughts?
Well, and how I feel about guys need to have a two-strike approach. Today's players feel like they're selling out if they change their approach with 2 strikes. And it's so frustrating because back in the day, back when Yogi played for sure, every time you went to bat, you had a different job to do. Today's player is swinging for a home run every time they walk up there.
Yeah.
But back in that day, sometimes your job was just to get on base. Sometimes your job was to move somebody over. Sometimes your job is to wear out the starting pitcher, to literally just go foul off as many as you can and wear him out. Get to that bullpen as quickly as you can. Sometimes it is to drive in a run. But today's player swings for the fences every time, and to them it's selling out if you have a true strike approach. And I've literally gotten fired by clients having this talk with them. I literally represented a kid. I'm not going to say his name, but this kid was the fastest kid in his organization. And the farm director, the minor league operations director, was literally calling me on the phone bi-weekly, begging me to try to get him to have a leadoff hitter approach. And think about the game today. Think of many power hitters now bat in the leadoff spot
or second,
because they don't care. They don't care about getting that guy on base that's going to get on a lot and steal bases and be trouble. They just want to get that guy that can hit the most home runs up as many times as possible, because the analytics say the more times he gets up, the more home runs he's going to hit. Well, no kidding.
Mm-hmm.
But like we're seeing, these teams that are just living analytically, they're doing okay during the regular season, but how are they doing in the postseason?
Great point. Great point. And ladies and gentlemen, just to further the point that Larry made about his dad's record, he mentioned 12 strikeouts. The year was 1950. He had 656 plate appearances. He struck out 12 times. His batting average was .322. His on-base percentage was .383. He slugged .533. Larry, and as the catcher, I mean, those numbers you just can't get your head around when you watch today's game.
Right. No, that's it. There's some guys like, and one, I mean, with the average, I'm just glad that when Aaron Judge hits the home runs, but he's also hitting 300. I'm not too. I know I'm going to get some people upset with it. I'm not too keen on a guy that hits 50 home runs and hits 210 or hits 220.
Right.
I'd rather have the guy hit 40 home runs and hit 260, and some other way like that. Because to me, if you hit 50 home runs, you should be driving in 150 runs every year.
One question I'd like to ask you is because I have the privilege of doing this show with Billy Martin Jr. and we also do it on a regular basis with Danny Mantle.
Oh, okay.
And he couldn't make it tonight, but he's with us regularly. We'd like to have you back in the future so that you could talk to Danny also. Question is, what did your dad, say about Mickey and the teams back then, and just give us some insight into those halcyon days, the golden days.
I'll be 76. So I grew up. I was born in 1949, and I was lucky enough to grow up with and know Joe DiMaggio and Mickey and Billy when he was with the team, and Roger, well, the whole everybody. My brother Tim was 2 years behind. Dale, unfortunately, was born in '56, so he's a Met. He grew up with the Mets. He wasn't a Yankee. The the Yankee that team, and I try to tell everybody that that team was so chemical or binded together. They used to play Saturday day games and Sunday doubleheaders. And on Saturday after the games, we'd be at Gil McDougall's house, our house, Andy Carey's house, Mickey's place that he rented, having a barbecue. And if you were lucky enough to drive by, you might see Whitey Ford throwing a pass to my brother Tim, or Mickey kicking a football to us, or having a catch on the front lawn. They were always together. It was you couldn't separate them. They were always together during that season. You couldn't separate them. And actually, when the season's over, everybody went home and did their thing. But during the season, it was like one big happy family. And I'll never forget that when Dad went back to the Yankees in 2000, uh, he went to his first spring training in 15 years when they had just won their three in a row. Then I went into the clubhouse and I saw how they reacted. And that night, I stayed with Dad at his hotel that night. I said, Dad, I can tell you, these guys act like you guys did in the fifth. They really like each other. I said, no wonder they play so well. They really like each other. They're not. They don't argue. There's not. But you need. To me, you need a good. You need a good leader. You need guys that are going to tell you that if you make a mistake, and I think Billy and I talked about this last night, that they come out of you made a mistake. You were messing around with World Series money. You were in trouble. They would make sure you got a Hank Bauer or Joe DiMaggio on your butt after run out, make a stupid play. You're in trouble. They don't do that anymore. They don't do that now. Nobody calls anybody out for making a mistake.
Absolutely.
Billy, you made that point on a previous episode. I thought it was an excellent one. And there's a lot of criticism in the current game with Aaron Boone. They feel he's a little too much of a cheerleader and not enough of a Billy Martin type. Where hey, you're going to be you're going to be afraid to come back to the dugout after making a bonehead play. But you want to know something? Larry brought up the perfect point, and you've brought it up too, Billy. It's better when it's self-policed. It's better when it's a teammate doing it. It's just that much more, Billy.
When the inmates run the asylum, it has a lot more power. As a player, you get used to coaches barking at you about certain things. Whether it's something mechanical, get your elbow up, do this, do that. You get to the point where you almost can tune it out, especially during games. But when your teammates get in your face, and that's what Larry was alluding to. Back then, if you didn't run out a ground ball, now wrap your head around this. My father was making $10,000 a year playing for the Yankees. If they won the World Series, he got another check for $6,700. almost 70% of his income, right, mattered on the World Series. And there weren't playoffs back then. It was just the World Series. Well, that money was so important to my father. If he made it, he could stay in New York and sustain himself until spring training. If not, he had to get on a train, go back to Berkeley, California, work in the penicillin plant, sell cars, or both to make enough money to get ready for spring training and be a Yankee again. I mean, so like Larry alluded to, if somebody didn't run out of ground ball, they were meeting Dad and Yogi and Mickey and Hank and several of the guys. Casey Stengel didn't have to do a damn thing but sit there and cross his arms and watch the teammates get on the guys about, why didn't you run that out? What's going on? That's my World Series money you're messing with. And that is a huge difference in today's game because, and even back then, the managers mattered. Today's player makes 50 times more than the manager. So what do they really care about that either?
Great point. And another thing that Larry alluded to was the fact of the hiatus or the time that Yogi took away from, he vowed in 1985 never to return to Yankee Stadium. And in 1999, it was when the Yogi Museum was just about to be open. Susan Waldman from WFAN brokered an apology by George, and he jumped in his limo and he drove to the Yogi Berra Museum, and he gets out of the limo. And I don't know if this is true, but the first thing he apologized. There's no question that he apologized to Yogi, and Yogi looked at his watch and said, "You're 10 minutes late."
Yep.
But he also said 14 years is long enough. I forgive you, George. Do you remember that day, Larry?
Oh yeah, we were all there at the museum when they did that. And when they came out, they actually, you could hear when they first went in the room together, uh, you could hear rumblings and everything. And then my mother went in the room, and then they came out. And the first thing my father said when he came out was, "It's over." And that's when Susan put them both on the radio. And this is special. It was a special day. Dad never, everybody thinks that Dad hated George Steinbrenner. He never hated the man at all, because they would see each other at baseball dinners and other functions, and they always talked. He just would not. He just didn't like the fact that George lied to him, told him that, and that he sent one of his best friends when he sent Clyde King down to fire him. He said, "You could. The man didn't have the nerve to come down and do it himself. If he had come down, that might even soothed it a little more. But the guy told him he was going to be the manager for the whole year. Says, don't worry about it. You're in for the year." And was it 13 games or 16 games into the season, he got fired? I mean, that was cruel. So, but you don't hate somebody and then start being best friends again that quick if you hated somebody. I mean, he went to every game that my father went to after that. He sat with George in the box, in his box and everything else. They were terrific together.
Larry, you could see that night when you saw footage, George was blown away by the museum. He really was just taken back. It was way more than he expected. I've been to the museum. Same. I had the same feeling about it. Could you speak about the pride that your family has of that museum?
Well, it was what was even more amazing was the people that it was called the Friends of Yogi Berra, a group of people in Montclair. They came to my father and said, "We'd like to build a museum in your honor." And my father first thing he said to us is, as a family, he goes, "I thought you had to be dead to have a museum. And the guy, and his friend said no, but he goes, and he said, I don't know if I'd have time to spend time there or what. But when they said no, we'll take care of everything, we'll build it, we'll get it. And so I wasn't in the museum until the day it opened. I never saw it being built or anything. And I was an alumni at Montclair State, so I was up there all the time, but I never went into the building. And when I went in and saw the first edition of the museum, I was shocked. I couldn't believe the way they had what they had done. You should see it now. They've had an addition on it. It's been remodeled. It's incredible. I mean, the job they do is phenomenal. They've had they have all these educational programs now for grammar kids and high school kids, sportsmanship, inclusion, and they take mathematics, science, and everything, and they incorporate as baseball. It's incredible, and I love to go in. I go in and I'll find out when there's a group going in or something, and I'll come in and I'll go, and then all of a sudden, the people, and they ruin it for the tour guide because they all get excited, and I go, come on, it's okay, I'm not dead.
Billy, it is just and just as Larry said at the end, it's also a learning center. You go in, there's kids, running around and learning and pointing and just that look, and they have like an auditorium where it's just overwhelming and it inclusive, and it's just absolutely beautiful. It's a living. That's why we said it ain't over for Yogi. It'll never be over. I'm reading online with your daughter Lindsay. She says it's just as you said. The Yogi's Big Catch is officially sold out. We still want to participate. We want you to participate on the day. Have a catch on your own.
Yep.
Post and tag the museum. Thank you all for making this event necessary. And then what we're going to do is we're going to throw it out on social media too. We're going to try and get, I have two sons that, make them throw it out on social media for their buddies. And we're going to just try and make it just larger and larger. And it sounds like fun, to be honest with you. Post and tag the museum, have a catch. Larry, in closing, we want to thank you so much for taking the time that you did. We're going to do the thing. We're going to have a catch. We're going to post it on the museum website, and then also I'm going to make another donation to the museum. It's that heartwarming, and because it's sold out. We can't say, hey, go down there that day, but we want to thank you for coming on. And if we do this again, if we have Danny Mantle, would you join us again?
Absolutely. I enjoy this stuff. I especially talking to older like Billy. Unfortunately, is only 61, so he's a baby in my eyes.
Yeah, and you played in the minor leagues for the Mets. Did you enjoy those days?
My dream, I continued on. I had a dream to be a major league player, and I started out as a first baseman, outfielder, and I was a freshman in high school, and the coach called the house one day and said, "Did you ever catch?" And I said, "No." And he maybe one or two games in Little League. And he goes, "Well, you're going to have to catch tomorrow. Our starting junior catcher is got the measles and can't." And I said, "All right, well, I'll give." And I started catching, and I caught the one game, and I loved it. And I caught the second game, and I caught every game since then. I started to play, and I loved it. And unfortunately, in my junior year, I had in 1967 I had to have a knee operation, which was at the time they cut you to pieces, and my knee just started to deteriorate pretty good. But I wanted to play ball, and I kept going. And I probably should have signed out of high school, but my mother said no. You're smart. I want you to get a college education. So, and you had to be 21 to sign back then. So, but I waited till my junior year, then I signed with the Mets. Joe McDonald gave me the opportunity, and I had a freak accident in Withville, Virginia. My own pitcher on a wet field slipped and took my leg out as I was fielding
A bunt,
a Baltimore chop off
a
the plate.
ball, a Baltimore chopper off.
I ran out and I yelled, "I got it!" He was coming in. He slipped, and I had my foot planted, and he rolled right over it, right over my leg. And I tried to do it and get, and then I couldn't go for an outside pitch. Every time I would lean over to try and hit an outside pitch, I'd pull back. I didn't have the strength. So I just told Whitey Herzog, who was the director, I said, Whitey, my desire to play this game. And he goes, but just tell me if I can't do it. And he called me a couple of months later and said, Larry, he goes, no, I'm not, hey, I asked you to tell me, and it's exactly what you're doing. So, and we became very good friends.
Larry Herzog, that's a big name you throw in there, and just as you said, what a shame, But it's part of the game. And as a catcher, with a knee injury, you see these guys today. They take it. They're always on one knee to get to frame the low strike, but you lose a little mobility. No, Larry.
I would think so. I never caught on one knee. My father never told me. Always he showed me a stance, and then I worked. One of the guys that really helped me was Jerry Grody. Jerry Grody, when Dad became a Met, I was 15, 16 years old, so I could go on the field. I used to take infield in between, before the games. And Jerry would work, he'd work with me on the infield on how to throw and receive the ball. And Jerry was a hell of a catcher. And he was just as good as anybody. It was, couldn't hit too much. Dad always said, he goes, I got to give him the hit and run to make him swing the bat. But I always laugh. But he was a tremendous guy, and I really enjoyed it. But you talk about injuries, but we had remember Tim Russert?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. Tim Russert did a Yes program from the museum. We had Carlton Fisk, Johnny Bench, Gary Carter, Dad, and I can't remember. I can't remember if Piazza made it or not, but they were talking about it. And the last thing Tim Russert asked on the show was, "You guys are known as the Ironman. You guys catch. You do this." And he went around and he goes, "How many surgeries have you had, or what do you had?" And everybody, he goes to everybody like hips, shoulders, knees, ankles. I think between the four guys, the four guys, not Dad yet, the four guys, there were like 37 surgeries between the show, everything. Wow. So he goes to Yogi, but how many surgeries did you have? He goes, none. And they all looked at him and they go, and Tim Russell goes, what do you mean none? He goes, none. I never had an operation, nothing.
Larry, is it true? Speaking of injuries, like, is it true your dad was so, I don't know what word to use, but he was awarded the Purple Heart, for D-Day, and he didn't want it known or sent home to his mom, to your mom, because he didn't want anybody worrying about him. Is that true?
Basically, his mother. He didn't want his mother to know, because it wasn't that he had shrapnel or something went through his hand, and so it wasn't a major. He didn't lose combat time or anything. Because right after D-Day, he went to the invasion of southern France. He was also at the invasion of southern France. So he took part. He actually took part in two invasions during the war. But yeah. But he was, in his injuries, he played. They couldn't keep these guys out of the lineup. We're watching an old film of Dad playing. My brother Tim and I and Dad were watching, and my father's catching the ball, and he's going to throw the ball back, and he's dropping a lot of them. You know how he's reaching into the glove to throw the ball back? And yes. He's dropping a lot of them. And Tim goes, what are you dropping all the balls for? He says, what are you talking about? He says, I got a broken hand. What do you mean you're playing with a broken hand? So I don't know.
Yeah. And well, let me ask you this question, because this is another one that really makes you chuckle every single time. Was Jackie safe or out at home plate?
He was safe. Can't say if anything else. I don't want to get struck by lightning if I say.
You would never say that to your dad, but
No, no, he was. He was. I mean, that's safe. You're out.
he was out.
He was
Oh,
out.
okay. I was
Where'd
going
he
to
go to?
say he's out, right? Yeah.
Yeah, he was. But for years, even when after Jackie passed, I mean, Rachel Robinson and my mother and father were very close, and the big thing was always when they saw each other, they never said hello first. Rachel would always say "safe," and my father would go out, and they would hug and kiss.
Uh, that's great. That's a great story. Was 55? You know, it was the only time that they won. Was that as crushing to the Yankees, or you would, did they say, hey, we'll get him next year?
Yeah, but same thing. It was a series, and people think that the Dodgers and the Yankees hated each other. And he says, they were in the same town, so all the big baseball events, they were always Giants, Dodgers, and Yankees. So they knew each other. They toured, when they went to Japan, I think twice they went to Japan as a team. He was very close with Gil Hodges, and Roy Campanella. They were very good friends. He says when we were on the field, we wanted to beat each other naturally. After the game was over, they'd go out to dinner.
Yeah.
Here's tomorrow's another day. My father never brought home a game to that, until we got older and could start really pestering him about what'd you do that for? How come you did that? But when he came over, if he went 0 for 4, we go, hey, you went 0 for 4. He said, yeah, but we won the game.
Yeah.
Didn't care, didn't matter, didn't bother him. And like that, the old thing was I mean, supposedly he was hitting 330 one year and he went 0 for 28 or something. And the guys, the sports writers were getting on him and going, when are you going to break out of your slump? And he goes, I'm not in a slump. I haven't struck out. I've hit every ball on the nose and they're catching it.
Larry, who was the pitcher on the mound? This is a classic Yogi, where I guess it was Casey Stengel comes out and he goes, "What do you think of his stuff? How's his stuff?" He goes, "How do I know? I haven't caught anything yet. Every
that,
single ball's been put in play over the fence." Yeah.
that was Whitey Ford. That was
Okay.
Whitey.
Was that his favorite? Was that his favorite to be a receiver? His battery mate, or just
Well,
whoever was.
all the pitchers that all the pitchers that I've ever spoke to said that my father has the right. He caught 184 complete game shutouts.
Wow,
Called every pitch.
wow, wow.
And
Do you watch the current Yankees? Do you watch this product?
not as much as I used to. I get frustrated. I was with my brother Dale today, and we were talking about, and he says, I can't watch these games. I said the Yankees, the last two games, they struck out 30 times. Because I just if I did that playing with the Pirates or the team did that with the Pirates, there'd be hell to pay.
You're such a and Dale, it's such a great point that you guys are making, and I agree with that. And I felt that way so strongly. Let's even look at this year. When you look at everybody thought the Yankees were going to finish in first place. Well, right now it's the Toronto Blue Jays, and it looks like they're going to hold on to first place. And now just take a look at the Toronto Blue Jays. Where do they rank out of 30 teams in batting average? First, where do they rank as being the hardest team to strike out? They're first,
Yeah, I think it's first. Yeah, they don't strike out that much.
and that's the name of the game. They're putting the bat on the ball, and they're wearing out the starters, getting into the bullpen, etc.
It's just like they say that when you strike out, nothing happens. Nothing happens. You're done. You're walking to the dugout. You hit a ground ball, the guy could boot it, throw it away, anything. Something has to happen when you hit the ball. If you don't hit it, why are you even going up there?
Larry, when I was looking at it the other day, and we all know, and I think I mentioned how much of a Mickey Mantle fan I was, but this was before my time. This game, and I don't know if you have really a memory of it. But 1960, Bill Mazeroski, your dad was playing left field, and he
Right.
wasn't really that old. He was 36, but back then, they moved him from behind home plate.
Yeah.
His knees buckled when that ball went over the wall. And I
Oh,
know that that was the only time that Mickey cried. Did that one really rip your dad up that they were
uh,
the better team?
I'm sure it did, but they were away. And by the time he got home, I'm sure when he got home, he was ready to play golf.
Okay.
He was just he didn't, like I said, he never let games bother him. He goes, they know, he knows they should have won, and he always says now he thought when he hit the 3-run homer in that game to put him ahead, he thought, and then when Jim Coates forgot to cover first base, that's where they lost the game. He said right there when and they should have been out of that inning. They would have should have never scored the runs to go ahead and to give the Mazeroski the chance to hit it over the fence.
Where did he get the entrepreneurial way about him? You know, he was in business and he owned bowling alleys with Phil Rizzuto and etc. And when I was a little kid and I'm playing Little League, I thought Yogi Berra was synonymous with Yoo-Hoo. I thought he owned Yoo-Hoo.
No,
You probably had unlimited Yoo-Hoo at the house, no?
no. Well, he was very close friends. He got into a country club, and one of the members was the son of the guy who invented Yoo-Hoo. And they wanted to the Yoo-Hoo people wanted to expand it, so they asked Dad. His friend asked him if he would mind, advertising for it, and that's where. And then Dad got Ellie and Mickey and the rest of them to be to work there also. But there used to be a lot of used to love to go down and load up my trunk of my car with Yoo-Hoo and everything. It was good because back then it was terrific.
Yeah.
I sure haven't had one in a long time. I don't know how good it is anymore, but
I
it,
know it was. I don't
it,
know if we were just kids. The bottles were a little smaller, and you so I think you savored it a little bit more.
very
You know,
it was very rich chocolate though.
right,
It's been watered down a little bit,
right.
but it
Like,
it was almost like a chocolate, real chocolate milk.
man,
And I mean, it was good stuff. But my father was a homebound person. My mother told me once when I was after school and everything, after college, she goes, Larry, you would have never had to work a day in your life if your father wanted to travel in the wintertime. After the season was over, he'd always travel. He didn't want to go any. He wanted to be with me and my brothers. He saw all our he could have gone. There were companies that offered him percentages, but they said you got to be in California to go here, you got to go to Texas here, you got to. But when we were kids, he turned everything down unless it was close by. He wasn't doing it, and he came to every basket. We never saw us play baseball. That was out of the question. But he saw our basketball, football, hockey, anything that was other than a baseball game, he came to. He actually came to me. He would come down. He would be like watching me do the pine car races, from when the Cub Scouts. He would do all that stuff. He was at everything we did. Him and my mother, they were. It was just a totally different way. And he took us to Madison Square Garden every weekend. If it was a boxing match, hockey, basketball. I loved basketball because we used to get to sit. They used to have double headers on Saturday or Sundays. I forgot what. And we would sit with the teams that were waiting to play. So I would sit with like Bob Cousy and Will Chamberlain and stuff And I wish I was smart enough to get photos and
nah,
autographs like they do now.
ah, what,
Just a great life because Dad made it that way. He never, and he wasn't. He drove. I mean, this is a man that drove Pintos, Ford Pintos, and Escorts until he was 60 years old. He wouldn't. He didn't drive. He goes, "What do I need a big fancy car? I'm going to my golf club and to the ballpark." He didn't care. He just had. My mother bought him a Jaguar when he was 60 years old, and he wanted to give it back. And friends told him, "No, that's a nice car." So they talked him into keeping it. So he drove. That's what he drove the last 30 years of his life, a Jaguar. But it took 60 years to get him to do it.
well, since my last name is Pinto, and that
Yeah,
car was
yeah.
nothing to
I,
brag about,
I,
but now I could brag
no,
about it
but
because
we
Yogi Berra
did.
drove a Pinto. Who knew? Uh, Such beautiful memories, Larry.
Oh God.
Thank you so much. I feel terrible that I received a text message from Billy that he lost internet service. So I feel so terrible with that. But with that, so two things. Can we have you back on again in the future? I know you're
Sure.
busy, but we want to do it
Nah,
again. And
anytime, Mike.
ah,
Anytime.
beautiful. And also, we want to wish you the best on the 21st, September 21st, Sunday. And in fact, I know it's sold out, but if I could get down there, I'm going to make a donation to the museum. If I could get down there that day, and I'd like to shake your hand and just wish you the best. And thank you
Appreciate
for
it.
coming
Where,
on.
where
And
do you live? Where are you located? Where are
I
you?
live in Staten Island.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yeah,
All
and
right.
been to the museum and love it. And it's just like I said, I've had a a love affair with the Yankees just as a diehard fan, like millions of other people. But I just feel that just growing up when I did, and just knowing about the history of the Yankees with your dad and Mickey and Billy and Whitey and your dad having more championship rings than anybody. It just, I still watch the game today. I root for the team like crazy.
We root. You want them to win.
Yeah.
It's just hard to watch because you never know what you're going to get with these guys.
Right.
That's not just the Yankees. It's
Right.
the way all these teams now that are in this have just lost all the. They went into look at the Mets. I rooted for the Mets, and all of a sudden they lose 8 in a row.
Larry, you're gonna think you're gonna think I'm either nuts or overstating this. I'm gonna tell you one thing that I think hurt them, and here's what it is. With Juan Soto, he made a comment a few weeks back. If you remember, the Mets were in the process. They swept the Phillies, and it looked like the momentum was going to. They went from like 8 games out to like 4 games out. They was steamrolling, and it looks like they were going to overtake the Phillies. Now, here's my theory. This is just my theory. Soto, for some reason, goes out and says in a post-game thing, and he goes, "You know who the real captain of the team is?" And he mentions Starling Marte. To me, the real captain of the team is Starling Marte. Larry, I think that's a slap in Francisco Lindor's face. I mean, that was a veiled kind of comment, and they went from 4 games out to you see what happened. They lost 8 games in a row, and I think team chemistry is so important. You mentioned it with your dad. They loved each other. They were brothers. They were a band of brothers. That once in a while did they maybe not get along or whatever the case. Boys will be boys or everything, but they loved each other and they always had each other's back.
Right. Absolutely.
And with Soto, he got the 800. He got the $800 million. But if the team chemistry isn't there, and I thought that comment when I heard that, I said that's a shot at Lindor. I hope it doesn't hurt the Mets. And lo and behold. But Larry, I want to thank you for the time that you spent. I wish we had Billy to say his goodbyes also, but we'll get him on the next one also. Thank you for joining us the 21st at the Yogi Berra Museum on the campus of Montclair State University. For Matt, I'm going to ask him, I'm going to say, Kodai Senga's down in the minors, right?
Yep.
We got Manaya's in the bullpen.
Yep.
And yet, you got Clay Holmes is not even 5 in fly. I think he's like 4 in fly. But yet you got McLean, Sprout. What do you think? Sprout. How do you
Sprout? I think it's Sprout.
Sprout. What do you think?
I mean, listen, the pitching's not where we want it to be. That's for sure. I think these guys really just don't have the ability to go to depth. But yeah, McLean and Sproat could anchor the Mets in the postseason if we make it. So it is exciting and kind of concerning to a certain extent. But yeah, McLean and Sproat look like the real deal.
That's awesome, and that's really what that's the most important thing. And anytime you have Juan Soto on your team, in my opinion, the thing that sets him apart is his offensive game translates to the postseason better than anyone. Now, again, anybody in a small series, they could struggle or whatever the case may be, but his game translates to the postseason. There's no question about it. So if you get there with that, with that young pitching, and it would be, you know, stranger things have happened, and why not? You throw them into the fire, and you see what you have. I remember the Yankees losing to the Angels, and I'm trying to think of what the pitcher's name was, and he as a rookie. I'm trying to think. He went on to he had a very good career with the Angels, but yeah, he was just thrown into the. He was just Lackey. I'm trying to think of his
John
first.
Lackey?
What was his first name?
John Lackey?
John Lackey. He is the answer to a trivia question. I think he won a game seven of World Series, but as a rookie, and I don't think anybody else ever did it. So so why not with the with and Matt? I don't know if you watch any of the Yankee games, but they have Cam Schlittler who
He's pitching
really
tonight, right?
he's pitching tonight. Wait, what? I
Yep.
gotta hang up. I gotta hang up. No, but yeah, it's like an infusion. It really does. It's a shot in the arm, and it's a war of attrition. No, Billy, where these pitchers get hurt, and you just need more than six, seven, eight starting pitchers as the season goes along because guys are gonna get hurt.
Yeah, I mean it really is next man up, and McLean has done a great job. Sproats has done a great job, and I still do like uh, Jonah Tong. I know he's struggled a bit in his first couple starts, but he could be one that throws in the playoffs also. So yeah, very very exciting, but also we got to get there first.
You're right.
And the thing that worries me
Wait,
too.
Billy, is this one of your clients? Hold on, Billy, hold on, hold on.
He was their positional player of the year. His name's Carson Binge, and he started off at high A, did really well at double A, and in like 2 weeks at triple A, he struggled. But, in case you don't pay attention, this game's kind of tough. Gene Carlos Stanton's hitting a buck 15, and in his, I'm pretty sure he's a little better than that.
Matt, are you familiar with Binge? You familiar with the player?
I am, yeah. He's coming up really quickly through our farm system. I think he might be our top ranked. He might be our top ranked prospect. Definitely our top ranked hitting prospect, I think. But yeah, this kid's having some year in the minors.
Billy's an agent. He's got an interesting pitcher right out of the Baltimore bullpen. Billy,
Oh, Cade Stroud is who that kid is, and he's doing pretty good. He's he might have the lowest ERA in that bullpen right now, actually.
Wow. So I have heard of he's a Cade Stroud, right?
that's right.
Okay,
Good
I
stuff.
have heard of Cade Stroud. Yeah, I mean, I'm sure we're not gonna see him until at least next year. But yeah, it's really interesting to see these kids make their way through the farm system. I mean, McLean Tong was the highest right before they got called up. Tong was the highest ranked one or the most highly touted, and he's actually struggled the most. Out of the three pitchers. But yes, reminds me of 2015 when we had the bunch of those homegrown pitchers come up and relied on them a lot, throughout the playoffs as well.
Matt, that's something we could ask Billy now that we have him back. He's mentioning a young player that he's the agent for. But when you guys buy cards and these guys are just flying through the farm systems much quicker. It's got to be really exciting for you because you're buying like a first image of a player, and before you know it, whether it's a Colson Montgomery, wow, this kid's in the show, and a lot of them are hitting the ground running. It's got to be exciting, no, Matt?
Yeah, yeah, very exciting. It's really cool to see it happen so quickly. I don't think it used to be that way, but you're right, it is now. And a guy like Benj, his first Bowman comes out, and he's already, making his way up to, I think it's maybe AAA now, and yeah, it's just happening really quick. And Colson Montgomery is a really good example. He's been in the league now for a couple months, hitting home runs, and we remember seeing his card a couple years ago. When he was just a prospect, just a top prospect. So it's really cool, really exciting.
Billy, Matt is definitely a diehard Met fan. Have you watched many games? You have a feel for the team by any chance, just from a distance? We know you're down in Texas, but you probably a little bit with the MLB channel. Any thoughts on the Mets?
Oh yeah, and I watched Sproat start the other day against the Rangers. I really wanted to see him because I mean McLean looks awesome. I know Tong struggled a little bit, but when you have three young arms like that, I mean, that's those are those are three arms that could carry a whole freaking team. And this Mets team's going to be really good moving forward, I think. It's what's interesting to me is, and I've heard some rumors that maybe signing that Soto fella is not been great for the clubhouse chemistry or what have you. And I don't know what truth there is to any of that. I know when you have that one superstar, if he's not a good guy, you can have one of those guys, but you can't have two of them. And so, this is probably a better question for Matthew. He's probably a lot more dialed in than what's going on there than we are. But it seems like there was a relief getting him out of pinstripes. What do you think's going on in the Mets with Soto?
So it's a really good question, and you hear everything in the media. He's not doing the Soto shuffle. He's not smiling enough. I do think he's a tough personality probably to have on a team. But I also think that through the lens of the public, everyone is kind of looking at last year's team that had a lot of really great energy, a lot of really great chemistry, and saying, where's that this year? But I think it's really hard to replicate last year's kind of energy that happened almost organically. So it's not too easy to compare it this year. I think this year's team, it's been really hard to get into a groove like that because of how streaky they've been. They haven't really been able to just kind of have fun, which is what they were doing last year. So I'm not sure that Soto's the reason for it. I don't think they're playing good enough baseball on a consistent basis to enjoy what they're doing every night.
Well,
Interesting. I mean,
well, go ahead, Bill.
every team has those guys that pop up, like Grisham for the Yankees. I love Vientos for the Mets, the way he's stepped up. I'm a fan of Beatty, who's a Texas kid who I know he hasn't totally lived up to fruition for what you Mets fans are hoping for, but I started noticing him going the other way recently. Some of the things that Mike and I talked about a lot about being old school. Well, if you'd have seen that kid in high school, he drove a lot of balls the other way. Mm-hmm. And then as he was breaking in his rookie, I noticed he was trying to pull everything. Ironically, I ran into the scout that drafted him for the Mets, who and I asked him those questions, and he said, oh, absolutely. He used the whole field when we drafted him. And some of the analytics guys got in his ears, and now he's trying to pull everything. And, it's maybe one of the things that Mike and I are concerned with Volpe. And seeing him try to be Johnny home run hitter as opposed to having that two-strike approach or looking at the game like Yogi Berra did.
Yeah, absolutely, Matt. I mean, Billy said it perfectly. And, it was funny. Billy just mentioned Volpe, and we've talked about him our fair share. And it's just amazing how much attention he gets even when he's not playing. I mean, all they do is talk about him. But, I had the privilege of speaking to Anthony Volpe's high school coach from Del Barton only days after he was drafted by the Yankees. And we had a nice conversation. And at that time, I said to him, well, I've just looked at some footage of him in high school. I said, reminds me a little bit size and just demeanor, reminded me a little bit of Alex Bregman. And I said, could you do me a favor? And I said, we're going to be recording the show tomorrow. Could you ask him before you come on the show, who does he? We know he idolizes Jeter. We know that. But Jeter's retired for for a number of years. So who does he emulate now? And believe it or not, he comes on my show. The coach comes on the show. He says, Mike. He goes, I asked Anthony who he emulates, and he guess who he says? Bregman. Now look at Bregman's swing and compare it to Volpe. It's like night and day. It's a very compact swing. He has an approach that he's looking to hit to all fields. Bregman is. It's a level swing. And you know what? Matt, I coached you with Little League and all of that. I use the expression Bregman. With his grip, he almost chokes the bat, and what I mean by that is I used to joke with the kids just to give them a visual. I said these are your knocking knuckles, and these are your punching knuckles, right? So you want to, some guys line up their knocking knuckles, some guys line up their knocking knuckles with their punching knuckles. He looks like he's exaggerating that, and it's a very compact swing, Bregman, and very level. Now you contrast that with Volpe. And it's very uphill. It's a uppercut swing. It's a very long swing. Once he starts it, he can't stop it. And too often, for too long of a periods of time, he goes dead pull. And I'm sorry, you could say that the shoulder popped out and all of that. The problems are more than just that, because lifetime now for the 3 years, he doesn't hit for average, and I see that swing all too often. But getting back and contrasting it, you look at a guy like Soto. Mechanically, he's absolutely perfect. Billy has said he loves a player that has a two-strike approach. Well, we know that Soto has a wide stance with his feet set apart, and he's kind of pigeon-toed with his front foot before strike two. Once it's strike two, he kind of changes his front foot. He doesn't have as much torque, if you will. He's not looking right. He's looking to just put the bat on the ball. Let me tell you, we could talk all we want that Soto has his downside to it, but in the postseason, he's a scary dude to contend with. Matt, your thoughts?
Yeah, watching him this year, because obviously, last year I watched him a little bit on the Yankees. I got to watch him when he was on the Nationals a little bit. But seeing him every day, the approach that he takes at the plate is just very, very impressive. He uses the whole field. He has probably the best eye I've ever seen at the plate. And you're right, he's got the two-strike approach. Just looking to put the ball in play. When you have two strikes, you don't want to do too much. You don't want to strike out. Now, he did struggle a lot in the beginning of the year, right? He had his issues with runners in scoring position. He had his issues, but I think he was just sort of settling in. And he's very quietly putting up a very, very, very good season. I read something today. He's going to have 40 home runs, 30 stolen bases, 100 runs scored, and he's going to get close to 100 RBIs. I think the only people that have done that before are Bagwell and Bonds, maybe. Two guys, back a little bit. And Soto's doing that very, very quietly. So I'm really excited to see what he could do in the playoffs. The one gripe that I do have with him is that he's not the best fielder there. And I think that hopefully doesn't. And I think I see, full-time DH somewhere in maybe the near future. But that can, ruin games, ruin playoff runs. That's the only thing I'm a bit worried about.
Well, let me give you one more thing, and this is fascinating because it ties into Billy. His dad was a legendary manager, and back in 1977, when the Yankees won the World Series, they did it despite clubhouse dissension. Reggie Jackson came to the team and said all the wrong things. Now, Soto is not as brash and outspoken and in your face as Reggie was, and Reggie was a real handful. And Billy Martin tried all of his bag of tricks in terms of psychology to get him to be more team oriented, dropped him in the lineup, etc., like that. He knew he was going to bat him clean up eventually, but he tried to send a message as best he could. But I'm going to ask a question. I'm going to make a comment, and then Matt and Billy, you are the judge and jury. And here's the thing: back on regarding Soto, back from August 25th to the 27th, the Mets swept the Phillies at home, and it looked like they were going to steamroll. Okay, and now during that time frame, Soto made a comment that my jaw dropped. And Matt, you're probably going to remember it when I mention it, but he goes out of his way to say that Starling Marte is the real captain of the team. Starling Marte is the real deal. And okay, you're giving props to Starling Marte, but what you're really doing, Juan, is that you're diminishing the perceived captain of the team, Francisco Lindor. And Matt, you go back to, he made those comments in late August. That marries up with the Mets free fall. And I really believe that comment just threw a damper on Lindor specifically, and the team camaraderie, etc. Am I overthinking that, or your thoughts on it?
Yeah, so I mean, Lindor's obviously struggled since that point. He's had a very up and down year. The year itself has been a roller coaster of emotions, for fans and, players, I'm sure, also. I wouldn't attribute the whole thing to that comment, but I will say that it couldn't have helped, right? You have a team that has played well, just two halves of a season, truly, two different teams, essentially, the Mets have been all year. And as you're starting to, get some momentum, as you're starting to, you just beat your division rival, you're getting right back in the race. You say something like that, and it could turn most of it back to, the team that was before. So I definitely think it did have some impact on it. It's also something that was pretty unnecessary to say. I feel like you're right. He went out of his way to do so. I think it couldn't have helped.
Right, and we're going to turn it over to Billy, but Billy knows this better than anybody. But me as a diehard Yankee fan, and I was a kid, I was a teenager, but when Reggie comes over and in his first interview, he says, "I'm the straw that stirs the drink." Thurman could stir the drink, but only badly, and I'm cringing before. Oh my God, Billy, your thoughts?
Yeah, and it wasn't quite that bad what he did. But why do that in the first place? You're just trying to fit in and see where you are. And saying something like that, it's going to be a perceived shot at Lindor regardless. Right? I mean, that's what it feels like to me hearing it. I'm going to assume they have some issue. And I don't get that, because he really confuses me, because like you say, you can't compare him to Reggie. There's no way Reggie would have a two-strike approach. I mean, I'll give Soto credit for that. I mean, Mickey Mantle had a two-strike approach, but that would drive analytics guys crazy today. The guy with maybe more natural power than anybody that's ever put on a pair of cleats. That's the way he felt. Now you got a guy like Lindor, and you're taking a shot at him. And I don't necessarily think it's a shot, but it kind of is. I mean, Marte hasn't been there that long. Why would you do that? I don't know. Is is that something that goes back a ways? I'd really like to know kind of where that comes from, because I've always felt like you can have one jerk on your team. You can have one huge ego. A team I really remember watching was the Giants back when they had Barry Bonds. And they went and added a Hall of Fame second baseman. And it destroyed that team. Now, you think adding a Hall of Fame second baseman would help any team out, right? But I think what happened is I think the team got divided on which jerk everybody preferred. You know, it was okay when it was just Barry because you had your 25 guys and you had Barry. But when Jeff Kent got there, the team got divided on which guy they preferred. And so is that maybe something that's going on? I hope not, because I know the Mets just got out of a 8-game losing streak.
Yep.
With the Polar Bears walk-off shot, which I think, did that just make him the all-time walk-off leader in Mets history?
Yep. Whenever we need a big hit.
Well, let's hope that Alonso turned the season or saved the season. That would be very fitting. And as Matt said, the comments weren't necessary. They certainly didn't help. But you as fans, I think we take it harder than they as players. When you read these comments, you just want to feel, you want to think that they all get along, that they're all pulling, that they want to win as much as we want them to win. Matt. Okay, we're gonna thank you now, and basically want you back on. Billy will have him on the next episode. This was a little bit with the technical difficulty, but hopefully you enjoyed getting your feet wet, and right, and you hopefully enjoyed being with us.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you for having me, Billy. It was really nice meeting you, and just to let you guys know, the Mets are up 5-1 already. So hopefully we turn this around.
Well, we brought him luck, Billy. Now he's gonna have to come back on. Well, we're glad for you. Nothing would be better than another Subway Series, etc. So we're rooting, and hopefully it was like Alonso, like we said, that saved the season. That would be nice because he's very easy to root for. No question about it. Gentlemen, thank you. We're going to see you on the next episode. Matt, thanks for joining us. Billy, you're the best. Okay.
All right, thanks, guys.
Okay. We'll talk.
Good.
All right. Take
All right,
care
see
now.
Matt.